Before sunrise, when the stones of Rome still hold the cold of night, a household is already awake. It is the 9th hour before dawn. The air smells of oil lamps and damp wool. Somewhere in the city, roosters cry, and a girl of 12 years opens her eyes knowing she will not sleep in this house again. Her name does not matter. There were thousands like her. There always were. She has been awake most of the night, listening to the sounds of her mother moving quietly, deliberately, as if noise itself might summon fear too soon. Outside, the city is beginning to breathe. Cartwheels creak. Sandaled feet strike stone. Rome does not pause for weddings. Rome absorbs them. The girl is small. Her hands tremble as she sits upright on the bed she has slept in since childhood. Today she will be married to a man more than twice her age, chosen not by affection, but by calculation, alliances, property, names. She has met him twice. She knows his voice better than his face. By nightfall he will have legal power over her body, her labour, and her future children. Her mother enters carrying something long, wrapped in cloth. When the fabric is pulled away, the lamplight catches metal. A spear, not polished, not ceremonial. Its point is darkened, stained, nicked by use. This is the hasta, the weapon of soldiers, the symbol of conquest. The mother's hands shake as she begins. The spear's tip touches the girl's scalp, parting her hair slowly, carefully, into 6 sections. Each movement is precise. One slip could draw blood. No one speaks. This is not tenderness. This is preparation. The girl does not cry out. She has been taught not to. Outside, Rome continues to wake. Inside, a ritual older than memory is unfolding. One that will teach her, before a single vow is spoken, what marriage in Rome truly means. Before the sun fully rises, the house begins to fill. Aunts arrive. Slaves move faster now. The air thickens with incense meant to purify, but it only makes breathing harder. The girl sits still as her hair, now divided into 6 tight braids, is pulled back and fixed into place. Each braid mirrors the hairstyle of the Vestal Virgins, Rome's sacred women sworn to chastity. The irony is deliberate. On the very day her virginity will be taken, she is dressed like those forbidden to ever lose it. Rome loved symbols, especially cruel ones. White wool is draped over her body. The tunic is simple, almost severe. No softness, no romance. Around her waist they tie the cingulum, the woolen belt knotted into the nodus Herculeus, the knot of Hercules. Complicated, intentional, difficult to undo, it presses into her stomach as it's tightened. A physical reminder that her body is sealed, owned, guarded, until tonight. Only one man has the right to untie it. No one explains how. No one asks if she's afraid. Outside, the streets are louder now. Rome is fully awake. Vendors shout, dogs bark. Somewhere nearby, a hammer strikes metal in a workshop. Life goes on, indifferent to what this day means for one child inside one house. That indifference is part of the ritual too. Her father enters. He does not look at her for long. This is not sentiment. This is transfer. In Roman law, she has always been under his power, his patria potestas. Today, that power will move, cleanly and legally, into another man's hands. He places her hand into the groom's. The words are spoken. Ubi tu Gaius, ego Gaia. Where you are, Gaius, I am Gaia. It sounds poetic. It is a surrender. The groom's grip is firm, not violent yet, just firm enough to make a point. He smells of wine and oil. He is calm, confident. This night has been promised to him by law, by gods, by tradition. He has nothing to fear. Then, without warning, the performance turns sharp. He pulls her, not gently, not privately. In front of everyone, he tears her from her mother's arms. The mother cries out. She is supposed to. The girl resists. She is supposed to. This is ritualized violence, rehearsed over centuries, reenacting the moment Rome taught itself how to take women. The abduction of the Sabines, the founding crime, turns sacred tradition. The door opens. Torches flare. The procession begins. She is dragged into the street, heart pounding, ears ringing as the crowd closes in. Not to stop it, but to celebrate it. The torches spit and crackle as they lift into the air, their flames bending in the morning wind. Smoke rolls low through the street, turning familiar stone into something warped and unreal. The girl is pulled forward, her feet barely keeping pace, sandals scraping against the road. The procession moves deliberately, slowly. This is not about efficiency. This is about display. Flutes begin to play, high, shrill notes that cut through the noise of the crowd. The sound is almost unsettling, vibrating in the chest. Around her, men laugh. Women watch with faces carefully schooled into approval. Children run alongside, grabbing at scattered nuts thrown into the street as fertility tokens, symbols of abundance tossed casually into the dust. The message is clear. What is happening here is not tragedy. It is prosperity. Then the chanting starts. Fescennine verses, obscene, explicit, relentless. Words shouted openly about what will be done to her body once the doors close. They mock her fear. They celebrate his dominance. The crowd roars with laughter as each line lands harder than the last. This is not whispered cruelty. This is public entertainment. Rome does not flinch from it. She keeps her eyes down, but the sound is everywhere. It crawls under her skin. These people are not strangers. Some have known her since birth. Some watched her play in these same streets. Today, they are witnesses, not to love, but to ownership being claimed. Ahead of her, boys carry spindles and weaving tools, held high like trophies. Symbols of the life awaiting her. Work, silence, obedience. She understands now that this procession is not moving her toward a husband. It is moving her away from herself. The groom walks beside her, steady, unhurried. This chaos does not touch him. It is built for him. Every shout reinforces what the law already grants him. By nightfall, her body will be proof of his legitimacy, his masculinity, his success. If she screams later, no one will hear it. If she resists, it will not matter. They reach the house. The doorframe is smeared with oil and animal fat, thick and glistening in the torchlight. Some say it is wolf fat, a quiet echo of Rome's origin myth, the she-wolf, Romulus, the city born of violence and survival. The symbolism is layered, intentional, inescapable. She pauses at the threshold. She must not step over it herself. That would suggest choice. Instead, the groom bends, lifts her bodily from the ground, and carries her inside. Her weight is nothing to him. The crowd cheers as her feet leave the earth. This moment, stripped of context centuries later, will be remembered as romance. In truth, it is conquest made ceremonial. The door slams shut behind them. Outside, the chanting continues. Inside, the house is waiting. Inside the house, the noise collapses into a dull echo. The thick wooden door seals out the street, but not its presence. Laughter and chants bleed through the walls, a reminder that privacy here is an illusion. Oil lamps cast low, trembling light across the atrium, illuminating painted ancestors, staring down from the walls. Every Roman house is a stage for memory. Tonight, it becomes a courtroom. At the centre of the room stands the lectus genialis, the marriage bed. It is not hidden. It is not modest. It is placed where clients will one day stand to greet the master of the house, where business will be conducted, where authority is displayed. The bed is draped in fabric and flowers, a monument to legitimacy. This is where lineage is meant to begin. The girl is led forward by the pronuba, a matron married only once, chosen to embody the ideal she is expected to imitate without question. The pronuba's hands are firm, practiced. She has done this before, many times. The ritual does not slow for fear. Incense burns heavy and sweet, meant to invite divine favour. The household gods are watching. So are the ancestors. The weight of expectation presses down harder than the stone roof overhead. This is not about affection. This is about confirmation, of law, of transfer, of control. The groom approaches. He is composed. Everything until now has belonged to the community, to spectacle and noise. What comes next belongs to him by right. He reaches for the cingulum, the woolen belt knotted tight around her waist. The nodus herculeus resists at first. It is meant to. The knot is symbolic of strength, of endurance, of masculine triumph over resistance. He works at it methodically, unhurried. Each movement is deliberate. The girl stands still. She has been taught this stillness. Movement would suggest defiance. Silence suggests virtue. Around them the lamps hiss softly as oil burns. Somewhere deeper in the house, servants wait, listening without listening. This moment is both intensely private and completely public. When the knot finally loosens, there is no applause, no words. The act itself is the declaration. What remains is obligation. Roman law is clear, even when it does not speak aloud. A marriage is not complete until it is confirmed. What follows is not framed as desire, but as duty, an act required to seal a contract, older than either of them. Outside, the crowd continues to drink and sing. Inside, the future of a family is being secured. By morning, there will be proof enough for those who demand it. The house will return to its routines. Rome will move forward, and the girl will wake as a wife. Morning does not bring relief. It brings inspection. Light seeps into the atrium through the compluvium, pale and indifferent, illuminating what the night has altered forever. The incense has burned down to ash. The lamps have gone cold. The sounds from the street have faded, replaced by the ordinary rhythms of Rome beginning another day. For the household, this is not an ending. It is a confirmation. The girl wakes slowly, her body aching in ways she does not yet have language for. Whatever tenderness may or may not have existed is irrelevant. What matters is that the requirement has been fulfilled. The marriage has been sealed not by words or witnesses, but by physical proof. In some households a cloth is examined, in others it is displayed. The specifics vary, but the purpose is the same. Evidence. Her body has produced what was demanded of it. No one asks how she feels. That question has no legal meaning. From this moment forward, her status is fixed. Under the older and most prestigious form of marriage, she has passed fully into her husband's hand. Conventio in manum, the phrase sounds administrative, almost harmless. In practice, it means that she no longer belongs to her father's household, to her birth gods, or even to herself. In law, she now occupies the position of a daughter within her husband's family. Her inheritance, if any, is his. Her labour is his. Her sexuality is his to command. This is the machinery behind the ritual. The spear, the abduction, the procession, the bed in the atrium. None of it exists for spectacle alone. Each piece reinforces a simple truth. Marriage in Rome is not a union between equals. It is a transfer of power, enacted through the female body. And Rome is meticulous about power. The husband now holds authority, not just socially, but legally. If he wishes to have sex, refusal is not recognized. If he seeks heirs, her role is to provide them. If she fails, through infertility, illness, or perceived disobedience, she can be set aside. The law will not intervene on her behalf. The law was designed for this outcome. Yet Rome insists on calling this order civilization, virtue. Outside, statues of gods stand immaculate in the sunlight. Senators debate justice. Philosophers argue about reason and restraint. This is the contradiction at the heart of Rome. A society capable of immense sophistication, sustained by systems that require silent submission from half its population. The wedding night was not an aberration, it was an initiation, and now, with the ritual complete, the real lifetime of control begins. As the days pass, the ritual fades from memory. For everyone, except the one who lived inside it. Rome does not mark this transition with mourning or reflection. It marks it with expectation. The household reorganizes itself around the new wife, not as an equal presence, but as a function. She is introduced to duties already assigned to her long before she understood their weight. She learns the rhythms of the house, when to rise, when to speak, when silence is safer. The spindle and loom are no longer symbols carried in a procession. They are daily instruments. Weaving is not merely work. It is virtue made visible. A good wife is productive, modest, contained. Her value is measured in cloth, in order, in children. Her husband's authority is quiet but absolute. He does not need to threaten. The law does that for him. If he is displeased, there are consequences that never need to be named. Rome has built an entire system where obedience feels natural because resistance feels impossible. Sex becomes routine, not mutual, not negotiated. It arrives when demanded, regardless of exhaustion or illness. Roman medical writers speak casually of women's bodies as vessels, as fields to be seeded. Pleasure is discussed as a male concern. Pain is assumed, endured, forgotten. What matters is fertility. Each missed cycle brings scrutiny. Each failed pregnancy whispers danger. Around her, other women live the same quiet reality. They exchange glances, not words. Advice is given obliquely. Endure, adapt, produce. The ones who do well gain a certain respect, a limited influence within the domestic sphere. The ones who do not are discarded or controlled more tightly. Rome does not need to be cruel loudly. It is efficient silently. And yet, Rome tells itself a different story. In public, women are praised as the moral backbone of society. Matrons are celebrated for chastity, loyalty, sacrifice. Their suffering is reframed as strength. Their lack of choice becomes virtue. The very rituals that strip them of autonomy are recast as honourable traditions that preserve order. This is how domination survives, by teaching its victims to name endurance as dignity. Over time, the law begins to shift. New forms of marriage emerge. Sin manu unions allow some women, especially among the elite, to retain property and legal identity. On paper, progress is made, but the rituals remain. The spear still parts the hair, the procession still reenacts abduction, the knot is still untied. Tradition lags behind law because tradition shapes belief. Rome does not abandon these symbols easily. They are too useful. Because as long as a society can convince itself that control is sacred, it never has to question who benefits from it. Time dulls the sharpest memories, but it does not erase their shape. Years pass. The girl grows into a woman shaped by routine, by restraint, by a system that rewards silence. To the outside world, she appears settled, respected even. She stands beside her husband at public events, her posture composed, her eyes lowered just enough to signal virtue. Rome admires this image. Rome applauds what it has manufactured. But beneath the surface, the structure remains unchanged. Her body is still not her own. Each pregnancy is greeted with relief or disappointment, measured not in love, but in utility. Sons are celebrated, daughters are calculated. Every birth tightens the bond between her body and the state, because Rome depends on legitimate heirs the way it depends on roads and armies. The law offers her little refuge. If her husband strays, which is expected, even joked about, she must endure it. If she strays, the consequences can be fatal. In earlier centuries, a husband could legally kill an adulterous wife caught in the act. Later reforms soften the edges, but the imbalance remains. Honour is male, shame is female. And yet, Rome insists this order is natural. Poets romanticize marriage as harmony. Philosophers praise women who accept their role with grace. Statues depict serene matrons, frozen in stone, eternally calm. These images are powerful. They overwrite memory. They transform lived experience into idealized myth. This is how Rome begins to forget, not by erasing, but by reframing. As centuries pass, the empire changes. Gods fall out of favor. New religions rise. Christianity arrives, carrying its own rules about sex, marriage, and purity. Pagan rituals are slowly abandoned, not because they are recognized as cruel, but because they no longer align with the new sacred order. The spear disappears, the chants fade, the procession softens, but the underlying assumptions survive. Marriage remains a transfer. Female sexuality remains controlled. Consent remains irrelevant. The language changes, the power does not. Later generations look back on Rome with admiration. They study its laws, its architecture, its philosophy. They inherit its ideas without interrogating their cost. The wedding rituals are dismissed as curiosities, stripped of their violence, retold as quaint traditions. Carrying a bride over a threshold becomes romance. The past is made comfortable. This is the final act of domination, turning suffering into symbolism. By the time Rome begins to fracture, the ritual has already done its work. Empires do not need to remember the hands that built them once the stone stands on its own. The wedding night, once loud with chants and torches, slips quietly into abstraction. It becomes custom without context, gesture without meaning, violence without a name. Medieval scholars inherit Rome's texts, but not its women. They copy laws, speeches, and poetry written almost entirely by men, while the domestic sphere is treated as footnote, anecdote, irrelevance. What happened inside Roman houses is deemed private, and what is private is dismissed as unimportant. History narrows its gaze and calls it objectivity. When later cultures invent darker myths about the past, lords claiming the right to a bride's first night, those stories gain traction because they are safely distant, barbaric, other. Rome, meanwhile, is preserved as refined, rational, foundational. The real rituals are too familiar, too close to home, too uncomfortably embedded in Western tradition to confront honestly. So Rome is not accused, it is admired. The spear becomes a hairpin in retellings. The abduction becomes playful resistance. The public chants dissolve into silence. What remains is a sanitized outline that can be admired without guilt. This is not an accident. Civilizations survive by choosing which memories to keep. Even modern scholarship resists this story. For generations, historians focus on senators and soldiers, on battles and constitutions. Marriage is treated as social background noise. Women appear only when exceptional. Empresses poison as saints. The ordinary suffering of millions is statistically invisible. It takes discomfort to change that. It takes scholars willing to read legal codes as instruments of control, rituals as performances of power, and silence as evidence. Only recently do historians begin to say plainly what Rome never hid, but later ages refused to see. That the wedding night was not symbolic violence, it was violence, formalized, and when that truth surfaces, it unsettles more than just our image of Rome. Because the inheritance is not ancient, it is continuous. The idea that marriage grants sexual entitlement. The belief that female virtue is proven through endurance. The expectation that pain can be sanctified by tradition. These concepts do not belong to the past. They are echoes, softened, revised, but still audible. Rome did not need to erase its rituals. We did it for them. The danger of this story is not that it reveals something monstrous about Rome. It is that it reveals something familiar about power. Rome did not invent domination. It perfected its presentation. By embedding control in ritual, by wrapping violence in law and symbolism, it ensured that no one needed to question it. Everyone played their role. Everyone called it order. The wedding night was never about desire. It was about certainty. Certainty of lineage. Certainty of ownership. certainty that the future would resemble the past. The girl's fear was irrelevant because the system did not recognize fear as data. It recognized only outcomes. This is why the ritual mattered so deeply. It trained everyone watching. The bride learned obedience, the groom learned entitlement, the families learned compliance, the crowd learned celebration. Even children learned by seeing, by chanting, by laughing. What would one day be expected of them or done to them? Power that teaches itself is power that lasts. When modern audiences recoil at these rituals, it is tempting to declare Rome uniquely cruel. That reaction misses the point. Rome was not an outlier. It was a template. Its legal logic, its treatment of marriage as transfer, its framing of women as vessels for legitimacy, all of this travelled forward in time, translated into new languages, baptized into new religions, written into new laws. Progress did not come from forgetting Rome, it came from challenging it. Each reform that recognized women as legal persons, each law that acknowledged consent, each movement that insisted marriage must be mutual rather than compulsory, was a break from this inheritance, and none of those changes were inevitable. They were resisted, violently, because systems that normalize control do not surrender easily. The wedding night ritual reminds us that tradition is not neutral, it is curated. Someone chooses which customs survive and which are dismissed as barbaric. Someone benefits from continuity. The girl whose hair was parted with a spear did not leave a diary. She left no speeches, no laws bear her name. But her experience shaped the world that followed, precisely because it was repeated, normalized, and justified. Remembering her is not about moral superiority over the past. It is about clarity in the present. Because whenever suffering is defended as sacred, whenever power demands silence in the name of tradition, Rome is still speaking. The final chapter begins not with the girl, not with Rome, but with memory itself. History is selective. It carves monuments, copies laws, preserves speeches. It forgets what cannot be easily displayed in marble or parchment. The quiet, repetitive, unrecorded violences that shape lives. And yet, those violences have consequences that echo across millennia. The wedding night ritual, once public and unavoidable, has faded into abstraction, misremembered as quaint ceremony or romantic pageantry. But its imprint lingers. Legal systems, social expectations, cultural narratives carry fragments of that transfer of power. The spear that parted hair, the knot that required mastery to untie, the chants that normalized fear. All of these elements were lessons encoded into the society that followed. They taught endurance, obedience, and the invisibility of certain truths. Rome is gone. Its senators, its consuls, its gods, and its festivals have disappeared into history books. Yet the logic of its control survives in subtler forms. Consent, autonomy, and bodily sovereignty, concepts we now consider fundamental, were once inconceivable. The expectation that a woman yield to a husband's will was law, ritual, and morality intertwined. The civilization that produced aqueducts, republican ideals, and poetry also produced formalized subjugation, and it did so proudly. Looking back, the story is devastating not because it's shocking in isolation, but because it was ordinary. This ordinariness is the lesson Rome imparts, that cruelty need not hide to endure, that ritual can sanctify violence, that law can legitimize suffering. The ritual was a theatre of power, designed to train, to warn, and to enforce. Its spectacle reassured all participants that the social order was natural, immutable, and just. And yet, the story also offers a fragile hope. Systems that seem eternal can be challenged. Legal recognition of autonomy, cultural shifts in understanding consent, and historical reckoning demonstrate that the architecture of control is not indestructible. By uncovering the full scope of the past, the spear, the procession, the public assertion of ownership. We confront the mechanisms of domination and gain clarity about the power we inherit. So when we remember the girl, her fear, and her endurance, we are not merely recounting a ritual, we are tracing a blueprint of control, exposing the deliberate performance of authority, and recognizing the human cost of systems we have long celebrated for their civilization. Rome did not need to erase this history, it only required that later generations choose what to see. And now, centuries later, the spear is visible again, not as a hairpin, not as a symbol of romance, but as a weapon. The ritual is remembered not to shame the past, but to illuminate the present, to teach vigilance, and to insist that power must always be questioned, even when cloaked in tradition. The girl's story is no longer silent, and neither should we be.